The SITREP podcast is sponsored by Blacksite Studio, the creators of incredible pre-colored terrain. Whether you're looking for terrain in 28 or 15 millimeter, they have a wide selection just for you. No matter the type of game, Blacksite Studio has exactly what you are looking for. They have new releases all the time, and their catalog continues to grow. So the next time you're considering new terrain, jump over to Blacksite Studio, and you will find just what you need. Remember to let them know you heard from us. Blacksite Studio, the official sponsors of the SITREP podcast. You are listening to the SITREP podcast, your home for everything related to modern wargaming. Whether it's reviews, rules analysis, play-by-plays, hobby time, or even gameplay videos, we will bring it all to you. And now for your hosts. From England, we have Ralph. From the Great White North of Canada, Chris. Our historical editor, Big Jim Oriskany, and G, both from the United States. And now, sit back, relax, and get ready for the ultimate ride into modern wargaming. Hello, everybody. This is G, and I am with Ralph and Jim, and today we're bringing you the next exciting episode of the SITREP podcast. It's been a couple weeks since we've talked to you, and we're back for more exciting news, gaming information, and our own informed/educated opinionated opinions. And we are ready to rock and roll, so all you guys grab your cup of lifer juice. I've got mine, and let's dig right into it. So let's bring the other guys on board. Ralph, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Excellent. Jim, how are you doing down there in sunny Florida?
It's funny you should say that. The weather is finally getting nice down here.
Oh, yeah.
I know everyone else is probably miserable right now, but we're actually doing great. It's our first nice day. Our winter officially begins today.
Oh.
Yeah, lucky him. I've got rain and maybe snow on the way. So,
well, we're in our thaw. It's a whole whopping 28 degrees. So, over the weekend it was down to like 7. So that's Fahrenheit for you people that use the metric system. I don't know what that is in metric. Celsius, metric, whatever. Anyways, for us, mouth breathers, it was freaking cold. So
there you go.
I was going to say though, G, if it's getting warm up there, won't you soon be in t-shirts and shorts?
Yeah, pretty much. So, guys, we are glad to be back with you. We've got some stuff to talk about, some news. We're going to do a very brief overview of a rule set that was sent to us. Contact Front. We're not going to do anything terribly in depth because we have not all had a chance to review it. But we're just going to give our first initial impressions. And it's made by God's Eye Games. Is that correct, Ralph?
I think it is, yeah. Yes, it's God's Eye Games. I've got it open in front of me.
Okay. So they were kind enough to send us a preview copy. And Ralph, you were saying that the books are printed now?
On their Facebook page, they've been posting up some pictures and stuff. And it looks like they've got the actual physical books now, which, looks really nice. It's a hardback book from what I saw of the pictures. I could be wrong. Don't kill me. Don't shoot the messenger, But, so, yeah. It looks like they're ready to rock and roll. Okay.
And, Jim, they are using some of miniatures from one of your favorite companies, go-to companies, Caesar Miniatures.
I've had Caesar before. They're very, very reasonable. They're highly detailed. The plastic is the ones that I got, the plastic is a little soft. The barrels are very bendy, and you have to come up with your own bases. But once you get past that, it's literally a quarter per miniature. And at 20 millimeter, I have some Marines, some Army, some Insurgents for Iraq and for Ukraine. They're great miniatures. So, you can't really go wrong with them.
Excellent. Are they plastic? They're plastic. Right?
Yes, the very, very soft plastic.
Okay. So just initial impressions. The book looks very nicely laid out. There's some nice full-color photographs of miniatures in action. It's a rule set that takes place in Afghanistan, if you will. And it's basically the insurgents versus the coalition forces, and they do a nice tutorial in the beginning, and they have weapons breakdown, some ranges to hit, charts. I'm doing, like I said, a very brief overview.
Ralph, do you have anything to add? You've had a chance to.
I've had a skim through, and it's nicely laid out. There's some nice tutorials. There's some nice examples of play as well, which I think help. They've also got vehicle stats in as well. I'm just skimming through the book again here, and the one that sort of caught me eye straight away was they've got the stats for the jackal. So that it's not just two opposing factions without vehicles. They've got vehicles in there as well. So, it covers the gamut. There's rules for engagement, breaching, opening doors, things like that as well. So, the standard sort of rules that we see in a lot of the miniatures games, things like Sangin, Spectre, Ultra Combat, when that finally makes an appearance as well.
Yep. Now, this is a squad or platoon-based game. Do you know? I'm trying to look
because there's lists in the back of the book for army lists. So they've got worked out lists. I'm just going to cycle down that page. It looks like it's the way they've structured the book for the army list. It goes command, platoon, section 1, section 2, and platoon support. So it's
a platoon size.
Looks like it's platoon size, yeah. But I'm assuming with them having the breakdown, because they've got the first sort of British army list is British Forces Invasion, Early Insurgents, Hall Manned, Battle Group. So it's the Homeland Province, 2001 to 2006. So you've got platoon support. You've got basically two platoons, and then the command, or two sections, and then the command platoon. So the command is 4 soldiers. Sections 1 and 2 are 4 soldiers each. So that's 12 man, and then your support on top of that.
Excellent. So there's even a section on night fighting with NVGs, night vision goggles, for those who aren't familiar with that term. There's intelligence briefings. Looks like you could do, intelligence gathering ops. Infantry. It looks pretty laid out. Like I said, guys, we have not dove into it deeply. But my plan is that Gaz is coming over from England. He'll be here next Friday. So the time of the airing of this podcast, Gaz, our friend from England, a fellow member on Beast of War OTT, is coming to spend a week with us on Experience an American Thanksgiving. And we are going to do a sample game of this. I have all kinds of miniatures to use. I've got those... oh my gosh. I got so many. I got the Canadians from Full Battle Rattle. I've got Americans from Miniature Building Authority. What's that? Total Tactical Simulations. What is the
Yeah.
Is it TTS? I'm sorry, Kirk. You can flog me later.
Empress as well. You've got Empress and Spectre, I know.
Yeah, I got the whole wide range. So we'll definitely get a quick demo run through of this. We'll try and take some pictures, maybe in a little video, and we'll do a demo of this, and put it up there. And then shortly after that, we'll get the guys on from God's Eye Games and get them to tell us the background on it. But it looks like an interesting rule set. I know, Jim, you really haven't had a chance to. Did you get the file I sent you?
I'll look at it in a little bit.
Okay, no worries.
Right.
So that's where we're at with that. So just so you guys know, there's another rule set coming out in Moderns, based again in Afghanistan. I'm assuming you could, make it Iraq, Syria, wherever you want to. Use Bekistan or wherever, So you just,
the
Ukraine. I mean, that seems to be the hot topic right now for a lot of miniature companies is the Ukraine. So we're definitely going to try and get that in, and we're going to try and do some Ultra Combat Modern as well while Gaz is here, because I've taken the week off, and we are literally spending a week of gaming. So that is our plan outside of cooking on Thanksgiving and shooting real guns. So we're going to be doing a lot of pew-pew sticks and playing games. So I'm going to show them a good old American Thanksgiving. Turkey,
There you go.
pie, and guns. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's the plan. So other than that, any other news that we've heard? I got a message. I don't know if you saw it, Ralph. Ultra Combat Modern. They're getting close to. on some of the parts of the project?
Yeah, I think it's still the miniatures, which is the sort of the sticking point, isn't it, with them and stuff from what they were saying.
I guess they had to get a new sculptor or something.
Yeah, they had to get a new American sculptor. Yeah. Well, they had to get a new sculptor who's based in the States to do the American miniatures, I think it is, because the Russian part of that is being sculpted elsewhere.
Yeah.
A different sculptor. But yeah, it'll, we backed it. We've spoken to Colin. We know Colin.
Yep.
So it'll turn up.
You know what? I think we need to schedule another update with him.
Yeah, I think we need to get Colin on. Because what's interesting is I think we'll get Ultra Combat. Looking at when it's going to appear, we'll get Ultra Combat first, and then I'm assuming, and this is me making a very big assumption, is we'll get NORTHAG as well, probably a couple of months after.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the year, there's going to be 2 new rule sets, if not before then.
Yeah.
Sort of hitting the shelves. One set, Cold War Gone Hot, which is the North African Plastic Soldier Company stuff.
Yeah.
And then we've got sort of an Ultra Combat version of that. Future Watch, I would say.
Yeah, if you guys hadn't had a chance to do the pre-order for NORTHAG, they had that tremendous deal for a starter set that pretty much, I think, included everything that they were offering at that time in a pre-order bundle. The rule book, both armies, the Soviets and the Brits. So I ordered the whole kit and caboodle because it was such a great deal. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And Jim, we got to make sure you get that book in your hands, and we need to definitely get your eyes on that. And we got to get you up here so you and we could get some video going on that and really,
more or less anytime. I just need to get a phone call. Okay. I mean, I have a week off coming up. It's too late for this, but I'm taking about the same time you are. Like the week before Thanksgiving, I'm going to be off catching up on a lot of stuff. So one thing about where I work is, I got lots of time off. As long as I let people know a little bit ahead of time, I can take it more or less whenever I want. So
excellent. Yeah,
I've been to 3 boot camps, so I can definitely make it up to Chicago. That's definitely not a problem.
Yeah, it might be a little easier getting here than Ireland.
Yeah.
So let's. We'll definitely have to talk offline and get something set up so we can get some, really serious gameplay evals done, and why not, right? We got so much stuff to talk about. So
you can put them in your VR headset as well to fly planes.
Oh yeah.
NORTHAG is early 80s, right?
Yeah.
It's about the same time period as Team Yankee.
I was going to say Team Yankee is mid 80s. Now that's not a terribly big difference, but there's going to be some. For people who might be used to Team Yankee, you're going to notice some differences.
Yeah, because
available
one of the interesting things, I didn't get it, was an add-on pack for the Russians was a platoon of T-80s.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
That's more to the mid 80s then. Okay.
Yeah, there was an add-on pack of a Russian T-80 platoon.
Yep.
Because you get T-72s in the kit with a bunch of infantry. The same with the British. You get the Challengers, you get the support, and you get the British infantry. And then one of the add-on packs for the Russians was a platoon of T-80s, which looked absolutely, for the scale, being 10 mil.
Yeah.
They looked absolutely. They did look gorgeous. Actually, they looked really good as a sculpt.
Were there T-64s in there somewhere, like in place of the T-72s, or is it T-72s?
I can't remember, but I can find out. Hold on a minute.
NORTHAG is.
I'm racing to get to the page myself.
Okay. I didn't mean to cause a problem.
No. I have everything linked, so it's just a matter of getting to the link. So, where are you?
Is it NORTHAG?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it looks like a nice setup, and I like the scale.
Yeah, I'm not normally a big fan of small scale. I like my 28mm, as everybody knows on the podcast, and Jim and G definitely know I'm a big Spectre fan. I like Spectre. I love their minis. I like the rule set. I think it's a really good rule set. So. That's me, but this came and I looked at it and I went, yes, I quite like that. Looks really nice. That looks, for that type of combat. I've got a copy of Team Yankee here, and cards on the table. I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan of Team Yankee at all. It just didn't appeal to me after I got the rule set. I got it to see what it was like.
Yeah.
To see if it's worth it.
So, Jim, currently they have T-80s, T-64s, T-62s, Soviet motorized rifle companies, BTR-60s, BMP-1s, and a BRDM-2.
Yep. Command vehicles. Yeah, that's because NORTHAG is up against a different group of Soviet forces. They're up against a group of Soviet forces in Germany, and that's all Category 1 divisions. Those are the guys that are going to be carrying the T-64, not the T-72, which, believe it or not, the T-72 came out after the T-64, but the T-72 is a markedly inferior tank. It was originally designed just for export.
Yep.
They didn't want to use them, but then something like the T-80s weren't coming out as fast as they thought. So some of the divisions in southern part of Germany and Czech Republic at the time, or Czechoslovakia at the time, up against the Americans in the extreme south of Germany. The Americans would be up against a mixed bag. In the north, they would have been up against T-80s and T-64s, and in the south, there would have been some group of Soviet forces or central group of Soviet forces. These were guys in southern East Germany and Czechoslovakia at the time. And they would have been carrying T-72s, depending on when exactly in the 80s this theoretical war broke out. And I bring all this up because one of the things that impressed me about NORTHAG was here is a company and a game system that's really paying attention to these kind of details as far as, okay, right now they have only the British, available for NATO forces. What kinds of Soviet formations are the British specifically going to be up against, depending on where they are in West Germany? All the different countries in NATO had, and I'm sure you can back me up on this, had very specific zones. They weren't just in West Germany in like this general soup. Very specific zones of like, here's where the Dutch are going to be, here's where the British are going to be, here's where the Americans are going to be. They, every year they would do the reforger exercises, return of forces to Germany, and they would, pretty much play Team Yankee at 1-to-1 scale. And the West Germans loved that because it just tore up the countryside and smashed up all the roads, tanks driving all over their gardens. And, but it was part of NATO's defense at the time. It was, the 80s were a scary time.
Yeah. And
NORTHAG was, everyone pines for the 80s. Oh, I want to watch Stranger Things. And the 80s sucked if you lived through them. Okay.
Oh, come on.
No. The day after the advent of AIDS, the 80s were not all that. The good old days weren't always so good. Let's just take a moment there. Yeah. But the 80s were scary, especially if you were in the military. Because it wasn't a game back then.
Right.
It was this could really happen, and for a while it really looked like it was gonna happen. I'm kind of getting off track here, but NORTHAG was definitely a game that I thought. I haven't seen the books yet. That really paid attention to these kind of details. I remember right on the cover they have a big T-64 with the reactive armor blocks, and I was just like, oh yes. And one of the first things that I thought Battlefront fixed after the initial Team Yankee release was they rolled out that Red Thunder, which included Bing T-64s, And then when you look at the cards, Team Yankee might not be everyone's favorite system or whatever, but when you look at the card for a T-64 and a card for a T-72 in Team Yankee, they got it right. The T-64 is actually a little bit better in game values. They saw that, they did that correctly, and they made that correction or whatever. We were talking about this on the stream the other day. The T-64 is the tank you really want to be looking at.
Yeah.
But as opposed to the T-72, and the idea of T-80s is just great.
They don't even offer T-72.
No, because right now they only have the British.
Yeah.
When they bring in the Americans and the West Germans, they might bring in some T-72s, depending on their. This is, these are the guys who come out with Battlefront. Battle Group. Yeah. So historical realism is the thing.
Yeah.
Even though this war never happened, they do look at the 80s the way the 80s were actually set up. And God forbid that war ever actually did start. This is the kind of thing that would have happened. So, I would expect T-72s to make an appearance in NORTHAG when it's no longer NORTHAG, when it becomes CENTAG.
Yep.
And you're looking at American 5th and 7th Corps, West German 3rd Corps, and some of the guys further south.
And we get to talk about the Fulda Gap.
That's right on the road to Frankfurt. Yeah, that's right through Würzburg. Yeah.
I did get sort of based around this is the Breaching the Gap, the Kickstarter that
All right.
went out. They announced on their Kickstarter page today that they've started shipping that Kickstarter.
Oh yeah.
So that's the hex-based What If 1980s Cold War gone hot. So that's shipping or has started shipping, which is interesting because that's all sort of the same time period and things that NORTHAG's based in. The other thing as well, of course, is at the recording of this, just so people don't know, is you won't be able to pre-order anymore. The pre-orders end this coming Monday for it.
For what, NORTHAG?
Yeah, for NORTHAG.
Okay, well then that leads me to my next segment. Jim, you're going to help me with my new segment. It's called Let's Spend G's Money.
Oh, all right.
So I am on the NORTHAG page, and like I said, I already bought the starter deal.
Which is a very good starter deal.
It is very good. So it comes with the...
Do you want to tell Jim what you get?
You get the rule book, you get the T64 company, you get a motorized rifle company, you get a BTR 60 company, you've
got one basic mixed arms forward element battalion there.
BRDM 2 patrol.
That's your command vehicle and your recon element.
Then you get a chieftain troop, a mechanized infantry platoon, and a scorpion troop. Plus,
you're putting a battalion up against a company,
right? Isn't
and then
that crazy?
You've got freebies as well. Have you seen the freebies?
Yeah,
Jay?
you get it gets even better. Plus, you get free Spetsnaz, attack ops Sultan, because that's going to do me a lot of good. Striker troop and a BRDM 1 patrol.
The Sultan might help depending on how the rules work.
Yeah. So.
Battle Group was heavily into, again, I know we had that long discussion with Pierce. I know NORTHAG is not completely based on Battle Group, but it's close in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And command units play a big part in Battle Group because that's going to influence how many order dice you get and how those order dice get modified. And nothing is worse, especially when you're playing the Soviets or the French, and I'm talking about World War II. I'm sure it's going to be this way with the Soviets in NORTHAG, is you have more units than you have orders. Because their command system was overly centralized. The junior officers and NCOs weren't as well trained as our junior officers and NCOs.
Yeah.
And you can, find yourself with 12 units and only 10 orders, and 2 of your units are just sitting there going, we don't know what to do. I don't know why my soldiers just became Germans, but I need to quit with the accents. I'm disastrous with accents. No more accents. That was the funniest part of our Falklands games. I tried to do a British accent, and Dylan laughed at me for like 20 minutes. So having that Sultan, if it's a command vehicle, is I think going to help. It's going to give you, it's going to allow you to move your existing forces with more freedom.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't have the rules yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's because you can buy the individual bits as well.
Right.
So the TAC Ops Sultan is one Sultan with a command group.
Yep, that's it.
Attached.
Yeah. So TAC Ops Sultan sounds like they're a British equivalent of like a M557 TOC.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Jim, should I have some T-80s?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the Soviets have enough firepower, but if you're going for 1984 to 5 and then forward into the 80s realism, yeah, T-80s would be. So the British are up against a group of Soviet forces in Germany, and it's not a perfect lineup as far as where the British are, where the Americans are, where the West Germans are, versus where certain groups of Soviet forces are.
Right.
Going into West Germany in 1985, you're looking at 3, or actually really 4 basic big moves. I'm not going to talk about the peripheries because who knows? I mean, I'm just strictly with Western Germany.
Yep.
Move number 1, they nuke the ever-living crap out of the North Sea coast. So Bremerhaven, Hamburg, all those cities up and down Brussels, up and down Brussels is getting hit. That was NATO headquarters. All up and down like Antwerp, all up and down the Dutch coast. That's all gone. The first wave of nukes are hitting there, and it's because they want to shut down that coast. That's the only way that UK and US reinforcements are getting into the country. If you look at how Europe is laid out,
right.
The Soviets are coming into Western Germany. They need to cut off Western Germany and perhaps the Low Countries from help from the UK and especially the US. They have to shut down those ports, and that's how they're going to do it. We actually have those plans. They're now been declassified. They're available on the internet if you know where to look for. There are these big either bombs or mushroom cloud icons all over these Russian maps. 2nd Guards Tank Army, 3rd Shock Army. We see these arrows. We know exactly where they were going to go and what they were, where their axes of advance were planned toward places like Bremen, Hamburg, and then further south towards Kassel, and then eventually into the American zone further south. Paderborn is in there. So you've got a lot of problems. That's the first move. And then you've got 3 main army groups, for lack of a better word, or groups of forces.
Uh-huh.
And that is a group of northern group of Soviet forces that is going into Denmark, the extreme northern part of Germany, and it's also a big operational reserve in Poland. That's the extreme north. I don't think the British are really going to be up against that. That's mostly Germans, Dutch, and Danes. Then a little bit further south, you've got the British, I think, have a corps, and the Germans have another corps. I think it's German 2nd Corps. I could be wrong on the number there. They're up against group of Soviet forces in Germany, GSFG. This is the main punch. Believe it or not, they weren't sending their toughest stuff down by us and the Americans, because in southern Germany, it's all mountains, it's all rivers. You've got the Fulda Gap, but that's a 40-kilometer wide gap, and we're going to be able to defend that pretty well. Yeah. So that's where a huge battle is going to take place, but the Soviets were not banking on that. The Soviets' big bank was in the north against the British. The British, they weren't as tough as the Americans. They just didn't have enough money compared to the American, defense budget or whatever. And even more of a factor against the British and, again, the Dutch and the West Germans, other people that were up there in that northern central part of Germany, is the terrain. That is open, flat terrain that's going straight through towards, I think it's Lower Saxony, and it's a straight shot right to the Rhine, and then toward the Ruhr, and then the Rhine, and then possibly into the Low Countries, maybe even France. And so that's where the main punch was going to come. That's group of Soviet forces in Germany. Those were the first people to get T-80s. Mm-hmm. So T-80s would definitely be up against the British. Okay. Depending on exactly when you're talking about in the 1980s. Also, this is a war that never happened. So the whole idea of, quote, historical realism kind of, you have to look at it through the lens. And then in the south,
almost so you want it to be a what if. You don't want to go, hey, there's spaceships like the Nachtwolf.
Yeah.
Let's not go there. But anyways.
No.
So do you think 10 T-80s are enough to start with? Because that's a full company.
That's a full company, yeah. 3 platoons of 3 in a command vehicle. A Soviet standard company is 10 of a vehicle.
Okay, I put that in my shopping cart. All right.
The British are at a slight disadvantage, though, because the British starter army, the thing that you get in a starter, yeah, are only getting 4 chieftains.
Right.
Yeah, already the British, just from the starter kit, the British are outnumbered 3-1.
Mm-hmm. But it is the chieftain, so
Yeah, but okay. It'll be interesting to see.
John, close your ears. Chieftains aren't all that.
Yeah.
Chieftains they really aren't. They're about half a generation behind the rest of NATO tanks. Yeah. Because by the early 80s, you've got the British Chieftain, which was basically a late 60s tank, and their stablemates at the time are the first American M1s, which are better. Just they're newer. They came out in the 1980s. They came out 15 years later. And the West German Leopard 2s, which were even better than the M1s at first. Remember, the first M1s had the L7 105 millimeter rifle. So, yeah, the Chieftain's got a bigger gun than the M1 originally had, but, no chop-em armor, doesn't have any of the big electronics, doesn't have, a lot of these other, certainly doesn't have the speed. And from what I'm hearing from British veterans, Ben Collins, Andrew, over there on Beast, a bunch of other guys that I know, Andrew Lee, Bruce Lee on the website, the Chieftain's, the mechanical reliability is just abysmal. It's every British Army joke starts off with, well, did the Chieftain start?
Why is that with British automobiles and tanks? Sorry, Ralph, I couldn't help it.
I'm not saying a word. I'm keeping quiet.
Every country in the world, if you look back through tank design, this goes into a little bit of, every country in the world has had certain pluses and minuses when it comes to designing tanks.
It's very true.
I mean, the British invented, well, they call it a tank. It really wasn't a tank by the modern definition, but the British invented the tank. They've always had great armor. They've always had some of the best guns. 17-pounder is what made the Sherman, actually
I was going to say, we built the chassis, and then they took it and improved it and made a great tank.
The Americans have always had automotive reliability. You push the button on an American tank, that sumbitch is turning over and smoke is coming out of the back. It's going somewhere. The Germans could never get that going. Even the Russians, for all their fame in that area, not as good as the Americans. The Americans always had terrible guns. We always had to borrow guns from the British. Even after the war, the American 90 millimeter we had in the original M48s weren't as good as the British L7. By then, the British are already on the L7 105 millimeter rifle. We carried L7s, British guns. We called it the M68, but we basically just bought a bunch of their guns and started building them under license. We carried their gun until we get to the mid-1980s, and we started buying from the Germans. Mm-hmm. The Americans haven't had a decent tank gun ever. I mean, the Pershing's 90 millimeter wasn't as good as the 17-pounder in some regards. Certainly wasn't as good as the German 88, even though it's technically bigger. The French always are the ones who are going to try something weird and wacky. They were the first people. They were the first people to put, like, the AMX-13, that oscillating turret. They were the first people in my book. I'm going to draw some fire here. The British did not invent the world's first tank. The French did. The French invented the FT-17, the first tank. What's one of the things that a tank needs to be considered a tank and not an assault gun, or assault howitzer, or a tank destroyer? It needs a fully revolving turret. FT-17 is the first tank with a revolving turret. And when Patton in World War I looked at everybody's tanks and he was going to build American Tank Corps, he said, you can keep all this British junk. We want these FT-17s. They're absurd. They're about the size of an SUV. They have a crew of 2, and they can barely fit in there. It's got a tiny little gun, but it's got that fully revolving turret. And even back then, Patton, I don't usually say nice things about Patton, but even Patton could see these are the tanks we're looking for. And again, it goes on and on and on and on. Is the M1 the best tank there ever has been, ever will be? Well, maybe not ever will be, but yes, it is objectively, provably, and measurably, but only because it has an American engine. It's got British armor, chop-em armor. That's British armor. It's got a German gun, and it's packed full of Japanese electronics. It's got the price tag to boot.
Yep.
If you've got $40 million and you say, I'm going to build as many, or, in real life, I'm going to buy as many Leopard 2s as I can, and you're going to build as many M1s as you can, I think I'm going to win that fight, because I'm going to have like 8 Leopard 2s versus your 3 M1s. The M1 is better than the Leopard 2, better than the Challenger, but not by enough to justify its expense. Yeah. The M1 works because it's an American tank and it has an American price tag and American taxpayers behind it. So all that goes into, how much should you buy for your Russians facing your British? You've already got enough, because I don't think the Chieftain is as good as some people might think it was. It will be able to handle triple its number in T-64s, or almost triple its number, maybe. Those BMPs aren't nothing to laugh at. They carry 8. Those are BMP 1s, you said?
Yep.
They carry 8 T3 Sagers. Ask the Israelis what they think of the 8 T3 Sager.
Yeah.
They call October 8th, 1973 Black Monday for a reason. The entire Israeli tank corps in the south part of the Sinai was wiped out in a single day. They never even saw an Egyptian tank. They lost 300 tanks in a day, all to AT-3 Sagers. Don't take those AT-3s lightly. Again, I don't know how it's going to work in a game, but trust me, I wouldn't take AT-3s. It's not going to be that bad as it was for the Israelis in the south, because I'm assuming the Soviets are going to be on the attack. And as the Soviets are attacking towards you, it's much more difficult to use anti-tank guided weapons in the attack than in the defense, because they don't usually fire while moving. You have to be stationary to be firing. It's best to fire them from under cover. So they're better in defense than attack. They're more like tank destroyers. But yeah, T-80s would be, I wouldn't know if I would add T-80s to your army. I might use T-80s in lieu of your T-64s. And if you wanted to be realistic, I would not mix the two on the table, because T-80s and T-64s would not be in the same company. Okay. We were talking with Pierce. He was describing what you get in the original, in the group. And you got a BTR company. You have, that's motorized infantry. You have BMP-1s, that's mechanized infantry, and that's the difference between those two. And then you have a company of tanks. the Soviets don't mix companies like that, and except for one exception, they usually build 3 companies of T-80s together, and that's a T-80 battalion and whatever, mechanized infantry, motorized infantry battalion. For this exception, where they have one company of each, that's a forward maneuver group, an FMG.
Okay.
That's in front of a Russian regiment that's at the spearhead of a battalion. This is their leading element. It's almost what we would call like armored cavalry. And their idea is the meeting engagement. They go out, they find the enemy, and they don't even really try to win. They just try to find the enemy, engage them in battle, and lock them in place long enough for Soviet tactical air or real Soviet maneuver forces to either sweep north and south of you and get you in a pincer. And that's it. You're finished. But that sounds like the force that's in the group. And I said to Pierce, that sounds like a forward maneuver group. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So you got one company of tanks. You could change out those T-64s for T-80s. And then, just keep the BTRs and the BMPs. And that's your forward maneuver group for probably the lead element, the lead regiment of either a Soviet, either tank division or mechanized division, motorized division, I guess they would call it.
Yeah.
Would you add anything to the British side then to make it a little bit more even, or is we have to kind of hold that a thought until we get the rules and see how it plays out?
So the Soviets, the British, maybe some more anti-tank missiles, because those tanks are going to be thin on the ground, honestly. I built these guys for British Gulf War. We ran with Damon a couple weeks ago, and I'm now forgetting. I might have to look it up. What the actual it's a type of either the Scimitar APC or something. I'll have to find it.
Well, what they have offering right now is you get obviously a chieftain troop. There's the mechanized infantry. There's a scorpion troop and a striker troop. That's the offerings for the British right now.
The striker is like the FV-402. It's the one with the little rack of guided missiles in the back.
Yeah.
Okay, those are the swing fire. At the time in the 1980s, I have a book from the 1980s called Tank Busters. It's a tragically out-of-date book. At the time, it was like cutting edge. Now it's like historical reference. But the swing fire, I'm looking at it right now. The swing fire missile was a lot more powerful than the Maverick, a lot more powerful than the Hellfire, a lot more powerful than the TOW. Those other missiles have like how many millimeters of 90-degree homogeneous armor plate you could supposedly get through. You get to the swing fire on that chart. I just remember this to this day. I'll open up the book and read it. Any known armor. So as many of those as you can get.
All right.
And that's especially if you're in defense. If you're in attack, no, because again, you're gonna those tiny little strikers are gonna get killed. I'm totally gonna have to find that little reference. I've already done this research, but now I'm just failing my my memory.
You failed your role there, Jim. You failed your check.
My wits plus tactics check here. It's taking forever to open. Never mind. So whatever that art, I'm probably getting the name wrong right now off the top of my head, but it's the. Trying to open this folder here. It's the British small APC that has the anti-tank guided missiles on the back. I know the missile is the swing fire. You want those. Those are going to help. Give yourself an extra troop of those, and that might handle some additional Soviet armor.
Gotcha.
And then just try and stay in defense.
I'll be interested to see how the infantry handled in the rule set. How infantry are
Foxtrot Victor 102 Striker is the one I'm thinking of.
Because it's interesting that Team Yankee has, I could be wrong, does have infantry rules, but I don't think they are. I've not seen many miniatures done for Team Yankee with the infantry sets and using infantry, where this one seems to be it's that fully integrated, infantry and support and tanks within this, especially within these starters. So I'll be interested to see how infantry is dealt with and how infantry deal with armor. What anti-tank, what tools they have. Because when you look at the Russian, the Russians are getting 60. Hang on one second, I'll bring it up. They're getting it says 18 fire teams, 9 BTRs. So you're getting basically 9
squads.
9 squads of men. For the Russians, the British are getting for a single 4 squads, 7 fire teams. So that's basically 4 squads, a command plus 3, 8-man.
Yeah, the
infantry plus the 2 for the Scorpions as well, because they're getting Scorpions.
This is a gross oversimplification, but NATO usually builds by 4s and Soviets build by 3s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, 3 squads, 3 platoons, that's a company. There's probably a command BTR in there somewhere that doesn't have a company. Yeah, that doesn't have a squad. It's like give you your commander, your radio man, and all that stuff like that. Soviet basic, like they're the beginning of their officer. This isn't exactly true, but the beginning of their command level for us is usually a lieutenant with a platoon, and for the Soviets, it's usually what they call a senior lieutenant for a company. A captain does not command a company in the Soviet order of battle. It's usually what they call a senior lieutenant. It's like a first lieutenant in our force, but that's usually a straight out company commander. And yeah, it's the F-107 Scimitar. The Scimitars are great. I love them. They're super fast. I'm looking at my Gulf War forces now. Mm-hmm. But it just carries a gun though, and no tows, no Milans, no swing fires. Yeah. That's one big difference between a Scimitar and say a Bradley or even a BMP. I'm not sure why they made that decision. I think the British like to specialize, and so they have their FV-102 Strikers, and those are the ones we were talking about a second ago. I just couldn't remember the number with certainty. FV-105 Sultan, that's going to be the command vehicle.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure when the Warrior started coming out, the MCV-80s.
Well, we'll get maybe you can in this one we've got the Scorpion. So I think the Warrior is. Let's have a look. I think the Warrior was.
Again, I'm in 1991.
On.
So yeah, I'm probably off by about a decade. But yeah, as far as what to add to your British force, as long as you're in defense, and you just don't want to go crazy, just buy more tanks. Where the hell, although that's always an option. Buy more tanks, get some Lynx attack helicopters if they have them. Or if
the FE-510 Warrior turned up in ended service from 84.
All right, so it's just after.
Yeah.
Probably just after.
And it's in service now still. British Army still use the Warrior now.
Military technology is advancing pretty slowly in a lot of ways because there's no really big wars going on. Either some Lynx or not Wasp, it would be a Lynx, I guess. The attack helicopters with some missiles. And again, maybe some more Strikers. You could click the clock forward a little bit and maybe add some Warriors or maybe even some Challenger 1s. That might help as well.
So we'll be hunting for other ones in 10mm.
Yep.
But it's cool. It's really I'm interested, and I think the scale is be amazing. I think seeing large battles of this on the table is going to be amazing if you've got the table set up. 10mm.
Like a 6x8 table in 10mm. Yeah. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. You could see if the rules lend it, and we don't know how complicated the rules are, but a participation game of, say a 6x6 or a 6x8, game at a convention, which is a participation game, would be, I think, really interesting.
Well, what you were saying before, Ralph, about like how the game seems to favor more integrated, combined arms sort of tactics. Yeah. That's huge DNA right out of Battle Group. Mm-hmm. Battle Group, all tank armies are basically illegal. It's like you want to have what they call a company level force, 500 points. You need to have at least this many platoons of infantry. Yeah, you have to get that. Now you can go buy your big cats and your 88s and all your nonsense or whatever. But yeah, you have to start with a certain bedrock of infantry, no matter what. That's just the rules for list creation. Of course, players can play with whatever list they want. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to scare anyone away from Battle Group, but strictly by the rules, like an all-tank army, that's just not legal. Yeah. Or at least discouraged. They say, look, or I should say, putting a lot of infantry in, the right amount of infantry in your force is strongly encouraged. Might be a better way to put that.
Yeah, because I'm assuming, and this is coming from somebody who never been in the military, has a basic knowledge a little bit more, is the fact that not having infantry in with, say, a tank platoon as a case wouldn't give you the flexibility that infantry will get you, especially to hold and take objectives, especially if they're within built-up areas, towns, cities, whatever.
If you're like in command of a tank company, say a Soviet tank company, you're a senior lieutenant, you've got 10 T-64s, and you're trying to move into a West German town, and there are British infantry in that town with anti-tank guided weapons. Take a moment before the battle starts and write your last letter home.
Yeah.
Unless you got artillery, or again, now we're back into combined arms. I mean, straight out tanks versus infantry is not always a bad thing, but usually a bad thing, because there's usually things on the battlefield called trees and buildings and hills and someplace for the infantry to hide. And it's also because you're a tank, or I should say you're a tank force, you're supposed to be on the offensive. That's the only purpose of a tank. Tanks do not defend. They don't hold ground. They attack ground. And then infantry are supposed to hold the ground right behind the tanks or even with the tanks. So infantry are on defense is their main job. I mean, speaking very broadly, and tanks are on offense, speaking very broadly. And infantry on defense. This happened at the Team Yankee boot camp. I was walking in to do an interview, and I walked past a bunch of built-up buildings, those little those horrible drapes and buildings that Justin built for that game, G.
Yeah.
And I passed a bunch of Soviet tanks burning in front of a town with a whole bunch of American mechanized infantry with the tows and the dragons, and I'm like, who set that table up? And we started doing the interview, and I think it was you doing the video. And it turned out it was Bruce Lee who actually had to do that for us versus that would have been bugger off, Mick.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, sorry. I was making fun of that table a second ago. I didn't realize it was you. But yeah, you don't do that. Absolutely not do that. Yeah, so again, it's just going to be one more thing that the game seems to be getting right.
I'm excited. I really am excited and looking forward to it. So let's change gears a little bit and talk about the present versus the future. Ralph, any hobby updates from your point of view or news?
There's no new news really. I've not seen anything other than Contact Front, which we sort of covered, popping up. I think it's all quiet now until the new year. The only there is one piece of news was that Blacksite, our lovely sponsors, there's a new set of Middle Eastern buildings came out. There was a next set, which looked really great. I think there was a minaret in there, and some other stuff as well to expand that. Is it Arabian Range or whatever they called it? I can't remember the name. I'm British. Websites believe me. So, but that was sort of announced. There's been a bunch of photographs as well from whichever convention it was last weekend where Blacksite were at. Showing off the table and people playing demo games of Spectre on this table. So there was that. Hobby wise, not much. I've been doing a little bit of writing. I'm busy putting together a fictional task group for Spectre games where I can just say I've got, say, 10 minis. They are of this force and I know what gear and things they've got, so they're like pre-created. So I'm busy finishing off that idea, which is it's called Task Group Main, and it's a mixture of SAS, SBS, and SSR. Troopers is the idea. I've got a little bit of fiction behind them, and I went through and had a look at what force is actually there. So it's a mixture of British 22nd SAS, I think it was 1st Regiment or 1st Battalion of the SBS, and some members of the SSR as well, and just writing up a little bit of history, things about them, which has been quite interesting, and then trying to break them down into, what I've got using all my Spectre minis. So when I've looked at my Spectre minis, I went, well, there's the Task Force Nomad minis. Well, they fall into this title, this sort of unit and things like that. So I've been having fun sort of doing that type of thing.
Very cool. So speaking of Blacksite, did you see the pictures of the subway system, or
yes,
the tube, as you guys call it? So
subway, yes, it looked really, really nice. It does. There was actually, I think one of the Spectre games was being played on that as well.
Yeah.
Or someone was doing a Spectre game or a modern game. Might have been Spectre.
Because I heard, because Brian from Blacksite messaged and said, hey, are you coming down for this convention? I knew nothing of it, unfortunately. And Spectre was there. So the guys from Spectre were there too. So, but yeah, they were doing demo games in the subway. So it was like like the SAS taking out some terrorists in the subway.
Yeah.
You know, like a dirty bomb or something like that. So it looks really good. They're doing really nice work.
Yeah, I think as well as that they're doing they're sort of saying about that subway set, and this is a little tangent, going for the new FFG Marvel Miniatures game, Crisis Protocol. And I think, you know, that's where they're positioning that a little bit as well, so it can be used with that. So you could have, you know, the heroes running through the subway, trashing it and stuff like that. So
nice.
It's all good having this sort of this modern stuff, which can be used for both modern miniatures, military, and other modern types of game, whether it be zombie or superhero or whatever. Yeah, it's really good.
No, it looks really good. So yeah, they got a lot of nice stuff going on right now for all kinds of stuff. So yeah, Jim, how about you? What's going on in your world?
Well, I'm working on my 1991 Gulf War armies.
Okay.
Or forces. I've got my Marines all built. I should say, yeah, they're built, primed, based, and I should say base colored. And the first wash and a couple other colors on there, they're not done, but they're getting close. I've also started my Iraqis. We were messing around with those a little bit on the Thursday stream. Yep. Trying to put the tracks on them, or paint the tracks on them. I'm actually working on them right now. So yeah, there's a little bit of old school hobby going on. I've also got another thread going on, the Beast of War project thread, where we're taking a bunch of stuff from, you know, like toys and junk and stuff that I bought at Historicon that was broken. I bought a lot of broken stuff at Historicon. That Black Hawk finally saw the light of day. I don't know if you saw that over there.
No, I haven't seen that yet. No.
The 1-72 Black Hawk. Basically, they had a huge vendor hall at Historicon, and a lot of the stuff they were selling was either broken or used or, you know, banged up. Someone tried to paint it and it didn't work or whatever. It was like aftermarket or whatever the term is for it. And it had a huge discount. So I had like an M41 Bulldog at like 1-32. This thing is like 11 inches long. Jeez. Yeah, a lot of big stuff. I have an M60 from the Marine Corps Gulf 1 with the ERA panels at 1-32. That thing is like 15 inches long. That was missing. Some of the suspension was broken. I had to respring some of the suspension. We had to I had to make my own reactive armor panels because some of them were broken off and lost. I couldn't just reattach them. That Black Hawk needed some love. I have a old M42 Duster AA tank from the Vietnam era in 1-100. I was going to add to my American Vietnam force that, again, needed some love. So yeah, it's like, you know, miniature ER or the miniature trauma center. I've been bringing in my miniatures, fixing them, buying new building new flying bases for my helicopters that got broken or lost or who knows what, and at the same time trying to build up this this Marine Corps / Iraqi force. Like we were saying with the T-80s versus M1s versus Chieftains versus, you know, what forces were up against what other forces. In fact, so I won't be having any T-72s. I know T-72s are very famous in the Gulf War, but the Marines did not go up against those. Yeah. They were too far to the west. The T-72s were northwest, actually. They were all with the Republican Guard Division. So I'm up against straight out T-54s, some Type 59-2s, you know, the Chinese knockoffs or whatever. I've got some BTR-60s on the way. Also infantry for both sides, Marines and Soviets. It's all 15 millimeter, 1-100. It's a mix of, I know it sounds weird because I don't usually like to game big modern tank battles in 15 mil, but I may not even ever use these guys on an actual table. But yeah, I'm pretty much just trying to build the forces that were on the eastern side of that battlefield. So where the Marine Corps was for those battles. Iraqi Army, Mechanized Divisions, Battle of Al-Kafji, January of '91, and so on. I got a long ways to go. I probably won't even be done with this by the end of the year, but it is underway. I am working on it, and the updates are going up over there on the site. And I'm going to definitely use the old. Suetonius Polynus trick. Who's that? Andy Zek. Yeah, I was having a very difficult time about a year and a half ago with my long-range desert group in 28 millimeter from Warlord, and it was basically a failed project. I was like putting it up on the project thread going, oh, this stinks. You know, I'm going to quit. And he came on and he was like, look, I don't know why this works, but it works. This is Andy talking, so you listen. He's like, I don't know why this works, but it works. Desert vehicles give them a light gray wash, and it was like magic. I don't know why it worked, but these long-range desert group, like those Chevy 300 weight vehicles that you see them using, it's almost like the grandfather of that War Pig that you were working on, G. It's almost that exact kind of truck, but in World War II.
Okay.
I don't know what it was, but as soon as you slapped a light gray wash on it, that vehicle just came right back to life.
Light gray wash, huh?
A light gray wash. I was thinking maybe light sand or light beige or something like that. Light gray, for some reason, it just saves a desert vehicle.
Really?
And if it doesn't work, you can blame Andy.
Okay, well, I'm going to put it on the War Pig. Now I'm going to try it on the War Pig.
Well, try it on like some sprues or something first.
Yeah.
It worked for me once, and it really saved a vehicle that I kind of wrecked. Reach out to Andy. I'm sure he'll tell you, because he's the guy who told it to me, and it definitely worked for me. I'm definitely going to try it on these guys.
Awesome.
My Marines came out a little too yellow. They're almost like German Russian front guys. So I'm hoping the light gray will. I mean, it's not bad, but it's a little too yellow. By the time I slap this new brush on there, or this new wash on there, I'm hoping it'll desaturate it a little bit, get it back down to more a yellowish sand, like desert kind of color.
Yeah.
And my Iraqis, I'm purposely doing a little too dark just so that they don't look exactly like my Americans. Like I was saying on the stream, the Gulf War visually was kind of boring. All vehicles were almost on both sides. All vehicles were basically the same damn color.
It's not like the good old days of the Napoleonic War, and everybody in their bright colors.
So I'm going to fudge the Iraqi color a little bit, just to give them a little bit of a pop.
Yep.
But yeah, that's going. And then tomorrow we have HK Ops again.
Excellent. So I'm glad, because it was missed last weekend for those guys who follow programming every week. We had a little bit of a lull last weekend. Scheduling conflicts. It happens, especially in RPG games.
Oh yeah.
And it was missed because the first episode was really great, and there's a lot of people going, I wonder what's going to happen now. So, it's a story that you're following along with. It's almost like an audiobook. You want to follow the story, so.
Yeah, it's not just that we have 5 people in the group, and I was trying to get this to be happening in one session. It didn't happen, and that was actually a good thing. The players got really into their characters. We really got into the whole. I mean, we already have like a little bit of a love triangle going on. We've got intrigue. No, we do. We've got an intrigue between one of the characters are playing members of a brand new members of a private military contracting firm, and there's already like a competing firm. So we work for Phalanx Multinational Consultants.
Yeah.
Initials PMC. So, I mean, it's kind of on the nose, but this is our first mission. We're not even technically a team yet. This is our first mission. This is pretty much, okay, well, they're going to give us some money, or they're going to give our characters some money, but this is like the probationary trial team, trial mission. So they're going to try and get this mission. They're down in cartel land down in Mexico. And then we didn't reach the main battle at the end of the story. We didn't want to rush. So we said, let's do this, 2 weeks from now. So we did that. And then, again, things came up, it's real life. So then 2 people couldn't play. So I was like, all right, guys, I'm going to call it for this week, because 3 people versus what is waiting for us in this little cartel center is our stronghold. I could have just taken some bad guys out and like rebalanced the scenario. But much more importantly, I mean, when I play a war game, I'm math, I'm numbers. Let the numbers flow where they might. I know this may sound unpopular, but I don't actually get into narrative in wargaming. I think narrative in wargaming is the job of the campaign game, not the actual tactical game. If you try to slap too much narrative in a tabletop game, you're now going to be putting some Kentucky windage on the math, and that bugs me. If you want narrative in a war game, that's why you have a campaign game. You string several war games together, and you tell your story that way. For a role-playing game, I'm the photo-negative opposite. The hell with the system, the hell with the rules. Stick those numbers someplace, warm and comfortable. I want to tell a story. And what really bugged me was that in part 2 of this episode, 2 characters were just going to poof into a magic puff of smoke. They just weren't going to be there. Did they go to the bathroom? Did they get lost with when the GPS broke? I mean, what? Where did they go? Stuff like that bugs me in role-playing games. That's one of the big reasons I kind of set aside role-playing games back in 2010 was, trying to rebuild and retcon stories around. Again, it's all about the story when I play when most people I think play role-playing games. Certainly isn't my idea. It's a story, everything story first, story last. When important characters are suddenly appearing out of parallel universes or disappearing into them, that makes the story shaky. That damages suspension of disbelief. That makes the story incohesive, and it kind of bugs me. One person, I'll take the character over because the person's not just going to disappear, and we'll continue. That's actually what's happening tomorrow. Is we did have one person, unfortunately, he's not going to be able to make it. But 4 out of 5 I can deal with. 3 out of 5 I didn't want to screw up our first mission like that. Mm-hmm. So we just took one extra week. Tomorrow we're coming back strong, and we're gonna tomorrow's going to be the big gun battle that we were supposed to reach actually now 3 weeks ago, and we just didn't get around to it. But tomorrow's going to be action packed. That's for sure.
Excellent. So make sure you guys join us. It'll be live on Twitch. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's going to be on Twitch. So it will have already been played by the time this episode goes, but the replay should be on YouTube.
Yeah. Excellent. So looking forward to that as well. You're doing a really nice job with that. That's a project. I know we've kind of skirted around it. Maybe in lieu of an Op Center series, maybe you could do a series on game creation.
Okay.
Something that you could take people through from initial concept to actual play. Something like that. Because I bet there's a lot of people out there that have ideas banging around in their brains, and they would like to know how to take it to fruition. So, whether you publish it or not, but just, have a group of friends around the table playing your game, it's pretty awesome. So, that might be something to think about in the near future.
Yeah. When you steal from one, it's plagiarism. When you steal from many, it's research. That's not mine. That's either Mark Twain or somebody else. Yeah. So anyone who looks at HK Ops is going to be like, he got that from this, and he got that from this, and it's a Frankenstein of like 5 different role playing systems, kind of thrown together, which I think is the way a lot of games work. I don't think there's anything really completely new under the sun, but. Yeah, this is basically, or even Dark Star, sort of the same way. If you want to make up your own game, it's easier than maybe you think.
Yeah. Just
sit down with your friends or your intended audience or whatever at first and say, let's make a list of your favorite games or even your favorite media from that genre. Like for Dark Star, it was science fiction, obviously. What do you like and what do you not like? And you just make a shopping list, and then you build your game around that. And then you can also, boost elements from other game systems. Don't make it obvious, and make sure that you, I don't want to use the word steal, but make sure that you're inspired by many different sources, because that's how, spoiler alert, that's how most games are written. Nobody sits down with a blank sheet of paper and says, I have an idea. I mean, that's just not how it goes.
Yeah.
D&D was basically ripped right off of Dragon Quest. There's just no way. Flames of War draws so many parallels from Panzer Blitz, it's not even funny. It's not that obvious because it jumps from hex encounters over to miniatures, but trust me, to the point where Panzer Blitz's mistakes, and yes, there are some Panzer Blitz mistakes, are kind of copied over into Flames of War. So when you even have the same mistakes, it's clear that there's a lot of, inspiration going on. And we do the same thing. Dark Star is not entirely original, and neither is HK Ops. And frankly, I don't think any game really is. So as far as we might come up with something for it later, but just for now, the first step, the very first prelude step to that question would be make a list of what you really like in games that you already play, and make a list of what you don't like. Don't be afraid to not include something. The biggest improvement from Flames of War version 3 to version 4 is not the new things they invented, it's what they didn't bring over. They took a chainsaw to that system, and it was glorious. And that's why Flames of War version 4, I think, is much better than Flames of War version 3. It's what they didn't put in. So, yeah, make a list of what you like, make a list of what you don't like, and start from there.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan. So real quick, hobby-wise for me, I've been obviously working on the War Pig, and then I just got an order in from Spectre Miniatures, the U.S. Rangers platoon or squad. So I'll be working on those hopefully Thursday night.
Did you get the optics for them as well, Jay, or did you not bother?
No, I didn't order optics for them. So I don't know. I could always print some. I have a 3D printer.
Yeah.
I have a resin printer, so I could always print some. You know what? I'll be honest with you, Ralph. I never even thought about it. I just assumed they came with them. I didn't know they had to be done separately.
They might have, because I know in the later ones that Spectre did, you had to, but they separated them out because I think some people didn't necessarily want them on their minis. Some did, so I could be wrong, but if not, you know, they're not difficult to print out. They're not difficult to do, really. I just know they are finicky to put on, which I use Andy's method of attaching them, which was a little bit of small amount of green stuff on milliput. Then a little bit of super glue as well to make sure it sticks, and then, you know, it works fine.
Are we talking about like the night vision stuff that sits on top of the helmet and snaps down?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way like you couldn't just build that yourself? I mean, yeah, obviously 3D printed, but like from I don't know, sprue pieces or something.
Oh, of course.
I mean, we're talking 28 mil.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for my Spetsnaz, I had a bunch of Russian Empress Russian heads with the single optic. So what I did was slice off the single optic and put them on my my Spetsnaz that I've got from Spectre. So they've all got the single optic because I was using that as it's either a hot toy or one of them. I've got a picture on Pinterest, and it's either a hot toy or one of the other, you know, the Action Man style, G.I. Joe style figures, and Spetsnaz, and all of them have got the single optic, which look really cool. So I went down the single optic route for them.
I meant to mention, I finally started working on that boat.
Oh, yeah?
We're talking about that boat like 100 years ago. Yeah. So I got a pack of 6 20 millimeter 50 cals. I put 2 of them on the front on a little swivel mount with magnets. And then I have like 4 extra 50 cals now. So I put 2 of them on these little gun stations on top of the pilot house, port and starboard. And then I've got 2 20 millimeter cannon I want to put on the back on another swivel mount. The damn things haven't arrived in the mail yet. So I'm hanging fire on those. But yeah, that boat is finally, I mean, God, that was like, 2 years ago I bought that stupid thing. We're finally actually making some progress on that.
Excellent. So that's pretty much what I've been up to. I was going to ask you,
how's your flights, your flying going with your VR experience?
Jim, if you have not caught any of the video, I don't know if you have or not. It's because I can't be flying in VR and monitoring Twitch and everything, but
I saw you flying, like, I think it was a Tomcat over Al Khalifa or whatever. Yeah.
So
I was like, and then you were like buzzing the tower. I'm like, please don't do a 9/11. That's not. Please don't get us in that kind of trouble.
Oh, so so for whatever reason, you know, we're trying to span out, and you know, Tuesday night's like video game night for modern stuff. So I've had DCS World sitting on my computer since, you know, a year or so, and I played it once previously because it's hard to play on just a regular keyboard. So I got this itch, and I went out and I went full steamboat. I bought a brand new computer that can handle VR. I bought an Oculus Rift S. I bought the Lotas Warthog, the pedals, the whole 9 yards. Right. The first time I sat in the Warthog, I was like, "Holy crap!" I mean, it felt like you were in the cockpit. And then, so
where are the Russian tanks? Show me some Russian tanks.
So there's one fire, and I'm telling you what, it's not a video game because there's a instant mission, they call it, where you have to fly air support. Well, you're not flying air support, but you're flying ground attack for some F-16s or something that's coming in to bomb a target. And so you got to take out, you know, AA and all this other stuff. And it's not easy at all. And I mean, there's
there is a difference between a computer game and a video game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I mean, in VR, I got hit. One of my engines went out. I went into no spin, and I could feel myself cringing in my seat as I'm getting ready to impact. I mean, it felt so real. And I'm not a person that normally gets motion sickness, but I did a couple tight gene turns, and my stomach started queasing up, and I'm like, holy moly!
Yeah.
So it's an amazing experience. I'm still learning, because I've been doing the training in the A10. I have the F-14. The modules are expensive for the aircraft. They're like $80 a piece.
Yeah, I looked at the full price on Steam for the whole lot.
Yeah.
Because the base game or the DCS is actually free.
Yes.
I think and it's all of the plug-in modules, the campaigns.
Yeah.
And they had a bundle buy, and if you look at the bottom of Steam, it's like £2,000.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
Yeah, well, I mean, once you get into the aircraft,
absolutely everything.
Once you get into the aircraft, it's amazing. I mean, because all its switches and everything work just like it typically would in a real aircraft. So I have the F-14. I now have the F-16, and I have, or not the F-16, the F-18, and I have the A-10. So I did the F-18 was over Dubai.
Okay.
And I tell you what, that was amazing. I knew nothing about the aircraft other than, I don't know where the controls were. I didn't know anything other than, okay, this is the stick, this is the rudder pedals, and half of that stuff isn't programmed properly. So I was flying. I couldn't land. I had to eject or crash because I couldn't land because the rudder pedals were actually my throttles, and it was all crazy. So it takes a while to get it set up, but if you're into a real life, this is a sim. This isn't a video game. This is a real simulator. It was amazing. So I'm really enjoying it. It's quite an experience. So
it is. We've got our work at one of the local universities, and we've got we've got two Rift S's with high spec laptops for anatomy, because there's some free software that teaches human anatomy. Because the pod I work in for the university, I work in the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences. We've got 8 Oculus Quests, which we're looking at for portable, the way of doing portable VR experiences. And we've got 16 Oculus Go's, which are the grey. Imagine what you used to do with your cardboard, where you would put your phone inside of a cardboard and have that experience. Yeah. But it also has an app store on it as well, and we've been putting 360 videos on them, and just putting the VR experience on, especially for the human anatomy stuff. It just changes the way, from my point of view, it changes the way that we teach, or where we are going to get our academics to engage with the students to teach that, because you get an experience that you couldn't teach traditionally. But things like DCS and things like that, it just changes that whole perspective of what you can do with technology to bring people into another environment, which is the whole idea behind it.
Right. Yeah, no, it's quite impressive what you can get these days. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to. So any last thoughts, anybody, before we close out the show today?
No, I think is the next one, are we planning a Christmas episode?
Yeah.
Are we going to chat? I know we've got some time, but it's creeping up very quickly.
I know, because Thanksgiving's in 2
next week
for us. And I know Gaz will be joining us for that show, so he'll still be here. So when we record for that one, but yeah, we need to start looking at a Christmas episode. What did you have in mind for a Christmas episode?
I don't know. Perhaps we'll maybe get some guests and just do a review of the year, because I think it's been, from my point of view, and I don't know about you guys, but it's been a really good year, a really interesting year when it came to modern miniatures and just modern gaming generally. From a video game point of view, the launch of the new Call of Duty, which has done really well. Yeah. From a narrative side, multiplayer side, the narrative of that game is really well written and really well put together. So, there's that, plus Spectre V2 dropped this year and things like that. So, and we had Colin's Kickstarter this year as well, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
at the beginning of the year. So maybe we go over that as a review, but it's something that we can discuss off the stream, of course.
Of course. And Jim, I think for end of year wrap up, I think we should do the top 10 episodes of the Op Center. We can do that based on views or streams or whatever.
Okay.
We can do that as a wrap up as well.
Maybe top 5.
Top 5, okay.
Because there's only been 12 episodes, so if we do top 10, then those other 2 are going to feel bad.
Okay.
They're
Yeah. I don't know why I thought there was more than just 12. I don't know. You were.
Well, there's a lot of content. There's a lot of content that we've been doing besides Op Centers, but
no, I just as a wrap up, the top 5, most viewed, whatever we want to do it, just to get people that may have not had a chance to look at them, get them interested in looking at them, and things like that. So definitely we'll do some kind of Christmas end of the year stuff. And Jim, before I forget, happy birthday.
Oh, thanks very much.
Do you know what I'm referring to?
Oh yeah, November 11th, 1775, Ton Tavern, Philadelphia.
So it's the Marines, 244th birthday?
Oh, whatever 1775 minus 2019 is.
So happy birthday to the U.S. Marines, because they never let us forget it's their birthday every year.
Oh, hey, we were founded in a tavern, so that tells you all you need to know.
So, guys, I appreciate you taking time and getting together for a nice, great chat. So, to everybody out there, thank you for continuing to support us. We hope you enjoy the content. To our Patreon supporters, this show could not be possible without you. And to everybody else, we will see you in the next show. Take care.